Sometimes the thought of just walking away from everything and everyone feels like the most liberating decision. I imagine the door closing behind me with no hesitation, leaving all the negativity and hurt behind. I daydream about that peaceful moment where I no longer feel trapped. In my mind, I see myself walking away from all the broken promises, the empty words, and the constant disappointment. It's almost as if slamming the door is the only way to regain my peace and find myself again. I long for the day when I no longer feel the need to explain myself or keep pretending that everything is fine. My thoughts often wander to moments where I simply close the door and take control of my own happiness without guilt or remorse. The thoughts that swirl in my head are a mix of frustration and longing for freedom. I imagine that slamming the door is my way of saying enough, a final act that would end the cycle of uncertainty and reclaim my sense of self. In the midst of all the chaos, I daydream about the satisfaction of leaving it all behind. To just walk away without looking back, to leave behind the toxic people, the negative energy, and the expectations. It's a fantasy of empowerment. I often find myself wishing for a moment where I can just walk away without a second thought. No more drama, no more heartache, just the sound of a door slamming as a symbol of my decision to step into a better future for myself. Sometimes, the only way I can truly express the frustration inside me is through the thought of closing the door. It's not about being dramatic. It's about wanting control, peace, and the chance to heal without outside interference. I dream of a day when I can let go of everything that holds me back, when I can shut the door on toxic relationships and negative influences, leaving them behind with no hesitation, fully focused on my own growth and peace of mind. There are moments when I feel like my emotions are all over the place, and the thought of just walking away from it all seem like the only solution. Slamming the door isn't about anger, it's about creating space to breathe, to heal, and to reconnect with my own desires. Sometimes walking away is the only way I can protect my own peace. I imagine the sound of the door closing behind me as the final goodbye to a chapter in my life that no longer serves me. In my daydreams, I don't feel the weight of expectations or judgments. I only hear the sound of the door closing behind me as I step into a life that's mine to control. It's a symbol of my power and choice. I imagine the freedom that comes with walking away from things that no longer align with who I am. The image of a door slamming is my mind's way of showing me that I have the strength to break free and embrace something new. When the weight of the world feels too heavy, I close my eyes and picture myself walking out the door, leaving behind everything that has hurt me. It's not a revengeful thought, it's my way of reclaiming my life. I often fantasize about closing the door on the expectations of others. It's a thought that brings me relief, the freedom to be myself without anyone dictating who I should be. Every time I feel the frustration bubbling inside, I think about the day when I can simply walk out of the door and leave everything behind. The thought of it feels empowering, as though I've finally taken control of my own happiness. Sometimes it's not about solving the problems, it's about knowing when to walk away. I imagine the sound of the door slamming as I step away from the chaos and into my own space of peace and clarity. I dream of the day when I don't have to justify my decisions. The thought of walking away without any explanation feels like a release, a moment of complete freedom from the expectations placed upon me. I often daydream about the moment when I can shut the door on the negativity that weighs me down. It's not about revenge. It's about creating the space I need to heal, grow, and become who I'm meant to be. In my quiet moments, I daydream about shutting the door on all the things that hold me back: fear, doubt, and insecurity. It's my way of telling myself that I'm ready to move on, to create the life I deserve. The thought of walking away from the chaos in my mind is a calming fantasy. I imagine the door closing behind me, sealing off the noise, and leaving me in a place of solitude where I can finally breathe. I daydream about the strength it would take to simply close the door on everything that no longer serves me. It's a metaphor for taking control of my own path, free from anyone's influence. The thought of slamming the door isn't about anger, it's about releasing all the frustration and choosing to walk away from the things that don't bring me peace. It's an act of self-love and self-preservation. Sometimes walking away is the best thing you can do for yourself. I often imagine closing the door behind me as a way to signify that I have had enough, that it's time to put myself first. I dream of the day when I can finally walk away from everything that drains me. The sound of the door slamming behind me is my mind's way of showing me that I have the strength to make a fresh start. In moments of frustration, I imagine myself shutting the door with finality. It's a symbolic gesture of saying goodbye to what hurts me and embracing a new chapter where I can flourish. The idea of slamming the door is my way of processing all the pent-up emotions. It's not about aggression. It's about finding an outlet to release the pain and create room for healing. I daydream about the moment when I can walk away with no regret. The door slams as a reminder that I have the power to choose my path and leave behind anything that no longer serves me. In my thoughts, walking away feels like the ultimate act of self-respect. It's about valuing myself enough to shut the door on everything that doesn't align with my happiness and well-being. I picture myself closing the door on all the emotional baggage I've carried for too long. It's a powerful thought, a way of telling myself that it's okay to let go and step into a brighter future. I often wonder what it would feel like to just walk away from the constant stress and pressure. The sound of the door closing behind me symbolizes my release from everything that drains my energy. Sometimes the best way to move forward is to leave everything behind. I imagine the door slamming as I walk away from the negativity, opening the door to a new chapter of peace and growth. I often find comfort in the thought of shutting the door behind me and walking away from it all. It's my way of reclaiming control, leaving the past behind, and stepping into a future that feels more like me. When I feel overwhelmed, I think about walking away without a second glance. Slamming the door is my mind's way of symbolizing a fresh start, free from the burdens of the past. The idea of closing the door is my escape, a way to shut out the noise and focus on what truly matters. It's not an act of anger, it's an act of self-preservation and love. In my daydreams, I see myself shutting the door and leaving behind all the things that have held me back. It's a moment of empowerment, a sign that I'm finally ready to take control of my own happiness. Sometimes, the only way to heal is to step away from what causes you pain. I imagine myself slamming the door behind me as a way of saying goodbye to all the things that no longer belong in my life. There's something freeing about the thought of walking away and closing the door on everything that weighs me down. It's not about revenge. It's about choosing myself and my peace over everything else. In the silence of my thoughts, I picture myself walking out the door with confidence, leaving behind the pain and the heartbreak. It's a symbolic act of liberation, the first step towards healing. Sometimes, I think the best way to regain control of my life is to simply walk away. The sound of the door slamming behind me represents the finality of my decision to put myself first. I often daydream about walking away from all the things that no longer serve me. The door slams behind me as I step into a world that's free from negativity, where I can finally be at peace. When everything feels too heavy, I imagine myself walking away, leaving behind all the expectations and disappointments. The door slams as a symbol of me choosing to let go and take back control of my life. The thought of closing the door isn't about running away. It's about creating the space I need to heal and move forward. It's my way of saying that I'm worthy of a peaceful and fulfilling life. In my daydreams, slamming the door represents strength and resilience. It's about walking away from everything that's holding me back so I can step into a future that aligns with my true desires. I dream of a day when I can finally leave behind everything that brings me down. The sound of the door slamming is the sound of me taking a stand for myself, prioritizing my own well-being. I often picture myself walking away without a second thought, leaving behind the weight of the world. The door slams as a reminder that sometimes walking away is the most empowering choice you can make. The thought of slamming the door behind me is a release, a way to break free from the cycle of negativity. It's a reminder that I have the power to create a new reality for myself, one where I'm in control. In the quiet moments of reflection, I imagine myself walking away and closing the door on everything that no longer serves me. It's an act of self-care, a way to protect my peace and my happiness.